get a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting, please?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, great. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do we have any public comments on non-agenda items tonight? Okay. And I guess, Luis, do we have any new business? No. Okay. Then moving into the applications, the first one we're going to do is 151 East Michigan.
My name is Jack Voss. Do you need my address?
No, that's fine.
Okay, and with me is, and I work for Universal Sign Company here representing Horizon Bank. Along with me is John Crandall, and John represents and works for Horizon Bank. Do you have the scans that we sent?
Yep, so they're up on the screen now, sorry.
Okay. So Horizon Bank is going to be the main tenant in this building, and in so doing, they are wanting to put up their signage so that they're visible. They also have a concern that the existing bank name that's on the building now, if it remains there, will create confusion for them operating as a bank there as well, having two names on the same building. Thus, you can see from our application that we are proposing the green band, the Horizon green band color, that will be placed over the existing bank name, not so to say to injure that name, but to cover the name up, and then we'll mount individual letters onto that panel that will be expressing Horizon Bank. And then we have a smaller logo sign that's below there on the door, above the door, pardon me. That sign is just a smaller sign, more at pedestrian level, to try to help people walking by see it a little easier. The next one we have is we have a small panel that's by the left side of the door. And that is just the panel that we put the hours on. It's just a metal panel installed where there was a metal panel there before. I don't know if you have a slide then of the back of the building that shows there you go, thank you. Then we have the back of the building where the mural is painted. For whatever reason, the muralist left a spot to put signage on the back of the building. And so we have our sign in the upper right-hand corner, and that's our typical sign like we put up at every other branch. Happy to answer any questions, and John is here to help as well.
So I believe this building has come in front of us a couple times, and in the past, it was going to be an event space. Is that not part of the equation anymore? Is it just a bank at this point?
Yes, the lower level will be a bank. The upper level, I believe, will be office.
Okay.
And the event space they chose for that campus, the Brown family has from Main Street East, pretty much stretching to this building. They have in the Diesenberg Center, if you've seen it yet.
Yeah.
On the main level, very nice space that connects to Main Street East. So.
Okay, cool.
So
yeah, it's a beautiful building.
Yeah.
And then I guess when you're fixing the sign, you being the sign expert, are you putting the mounts into the mortar of the joints, or are you having to drill into the granite facade or whatever the stone is?
I think we can avoid the mortar joints in a large amount, in the majority of the amount. When I looked at it this afternoon, I think that what we'll do is we'll create a bracket that will go along the entire green band and then go back on the side. And I don't know how well you saw or looked at the building, but there's a corner there, and that corner sets back in probably about 5 inches. Mm-hmm. And I think I can put plates on the end of the bracket on each end, tie into the sides, and then tie into one or two mortar joints somewhere in the middle just to make sure we have enough to tie into.
Okay, great, yeah.
I have a question. Is your intention to have both of the signs, or are these on the front of the building options? Like option one is the long full banner, and the second one would be your stacked logo.
If the code allows us to have both of them, we would prefer both. Our first choice was to have the band up on top of the branch, and the second choice was to have the one that was down below the doors. Above the doors, pardon me. If we wouldn't be allowed to put the top one at the top of the building, we would still want to do something to cover that name up somehow. So when we looked at the code, we thought the code would allow them both, but we're really here to just make sure that it meets what you want, and then we'll react to zoning to make sure that whatever we're doing is allowed by zoning.
I have a quick question. I'm sorry, Joni. So the building across the street, I believe it is a Fifth Third Bank, was in another historic building, the American National Bank, and they too have an inscription above it which is not covered. They have their sign right above the door as well, and so I am wondering if there is a continuity question that needs to come into play here as well, since they're directly across the street from each other.
And along that same line of questioning, maybe Luis, is there a best practice when you have buildings that have old inscriptions that maybe add to the character of the building but aren't relevant to what it's being used for? Like I believe the Gazette, building has Gazette, engravings in it, and obviously it's nothing to do with Gazette anymore.
Yeah, so I think the first thing that I'll address is what Katie brought up, and the American National Bank building is actually not located in the local historic district, so I think it's important to consider those differences first. While I think that the engraving there does illustrate craftsmanship and it is a character-defining feature, I think that it's certainly not the most character-defining feature of the structure, correct? Mm-hmm. I think that it was also really enlightening for us to now know that it sounds like the amount of joints will be minimized. I think that there are already some holes that are on the front of the building where the Kalamazoo Bank lettering is, because it was the industrial bank or something at one point. This building is really interesting because when I looked back, originally it was the Kalamazoo Savings Bank. For a while, this then also had the American National Bank lettering up there, which is, I'm guessing, one of the iterations when they poked holes through the Kalamazoo Savings Bank was to put that up. The pictures are never the best that I can find, and I can't tell if that was... My best guess is that they did not re-engrave the building. I think that they probably stuck something up there and just made it say American National Bank, and they did put holes in it. Making sure that you can align with those mortar joints will minimize the damage, and then we, if the sign was ever to come off, that means that we would still have it behind it. Looking at the other signs, you can tell that above the door, there are some holes that it looks like are already in there, and I'm sure that those...
Kaiser Insurance, yep. I believe, used a sign like that. Mm-hmm.
The Our sign is extremely utilitarian, and I think that that's kind of a beast of its own because it's so utilitarian, right? That is something that we're looking at in a little bit of a different light. And then the one on the rear, I think the mural was painted rather intentionally to leave room for signage, and I'm sure that there are so many mortar joints that they could be mounted into there as well. And I know that was a little bit more than what was asked, but this one was an interesting journey to look at.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Yeah, we haven't, as long as I've been on the commission, we haven't run into what to do with existing typography, so that's awesome.
I think everything looks very tastefully done. I think it sounds like you're on the right track. You're not trying to put holes in the structure itself if you can avoid it, minimizing the holes. The only thing I would have say is to Luis is I'm not sure about the multiple signs. I haven't seen where we've had multiple signage on the same building. It's always been like one sign in the yard or one sign on the front. I'm not sure how that falls under our historic guidelines, but that's the only question I'd have.
To me, that really falls more under the jurisdiction of zoning. I think that you could look at things for obscuring character-defining features, which we've touched on here already. But To me, the numbers is not something that we would rule upon. That would be the place of zoning to look at the square footage of signage. And I trust that you two will speak with the zoning administrator to make sure that there's alignment there.
Yes.
Just a comment, I guess, for discussion. I may be a party of one, but I would not be confused if the lettering remained at the top. I mean, I have grown up in Kalamazoo, and referencing the bank that Katie mentioned, which I know is not in the historic district, but again, that has a different bank's name on it, and I've forever called it the Fifth Third Bank Building. So I think also, as a graphic designer, if you have successful branding and marketing, I think your customers will find you just fine. I would be more in favor of the sign right above the door. If you're seeking stronger branding outside, I mean, thinking outside the box, perhaps you could work with TraStar and get one of those plaques that flank the doors and have some stronger branding there as well. But I would tend to be in favor of keeping the historical lettering because to me it's more of just a decorative element. I see it as part of the relief of the character of the history of the building. I would not be confused about what bank is there.
Yeah, if I may, the historic, or I guess the non-historic section, the Fifth Third building was, the old Kent building, was the American National Bank building, all in a line of mergers for the same. So if you started American National Bank, you went to Old Kent Bank, and you went to Fifth Third Bank. We don't have that benefit here. Kalamazoo City Savings Bank was chartered actually by a Brown relative, before 1900, and then this was the building they built to occupy it. So, and we're nodding to the history in our interior, and we actually have some photos from the Brown family of the bank's old interior, and we want to bring that out as part of, honoring the history of the building. But branding and coming downtown with a lot of great things happening, we want to make sure there's just no confusion. People know exactly where we are.
I would say, I do appreciate what you're saying. For me, the fact that it's being covered up and not, and being basically saved for future generations is more important to me. I also like it, but I wouldn't want to get in the way of the branding. My like for it isn't enough to get in the way for the branding, but that's where I'm at it. It is, I do love those old inscriptions.
Yeah. Preserving that's important to us too, and to the landlord as well.
I tend to agree as well. I like the lettering that's there, but I understand the desire to cover it up and avoid confusion. Mm-hmm. I just want to clarify, because I also appreciate that you've considered how you could mount it kind of on the side and not destroy any more of the front facade. Mm-hmm. But to clarify, is that banner going to cover up any of the other character defining features other than the lettering?
No.
Okay.
I looked at that before I came in. There's a lot of really wonderful accents
right
above and below that would be a shame to cover up.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no other questions, does anyone want to make a motion to approve as applied? Or, with a caveat or a motion in general?
Not volunteering to make a motion, but if we're making a motion, could we clarify if we're approving the dual signage, or are we just going to give them free rein to do one or both? Do we need to specify or have conversation about that?
I think the application states it was both.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
There's
Louise.
no rendering showing both together, so that's what I want clarification on.
I don't have an issue personally with a sign on the front and the back. There's already signage there, and it's just covering what's there.
Sorry, the front banner and the door header.
Oh, I see.
That's what I was just seeking clarification on.
Yeah, so the application says the installation of 121.7 square foot, and I'm not going to read all the numbers, I suppose. Upper level letters, install the one that's wall cabinet above the main entrance, and then the lobby hours pane in addition to the back of the building. In addition, added by me. If you guys feel more comfortable saying, I think that as written, it to me says that they're looking to add 4 signs. But if people want to clarify that for the motion, I think that'd be more than appropriate.
All right, I'll make a motion to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the work to install the 4 signs as described in the application, as it complies with Secretary of Interior Standards 5, 9, and 10.
I'll second the motion.
Casey, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Katie?
Yay.
Christy?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
So your motion is passed. I'll be in touch with you guys by the end of the week to get the paperwork out to you formally. And then I haven't looked at this in a while, but just make sure that you apply for all other necessary permissions before you proceed with the work,
You bet.
like a zoning approval and stuff.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, thanks for your help.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a nice day.
Now, 911 South Park.
Good evening. I'm Aaron Davies. I live at 911 South Park Street. My application is to address the deteriorating front porch. I previously submitted a stick style and have gone back and done additional research. The original porch appears to have been a simple covered entry represented in the Stoner drawing from 1880, also consistent with the brickwork on the front of the house. The large colonial porch was added somewhere around 1900 and is visible in drawings after that time frame. Submitted 2 possible options. My strong preference would be to do the stick style, recreating as close as possible as the original. There's also an additional, more traditional or more similar colonial style rendering. Both would uncover a window that is in the stairwell that was covered. The porch roof actually goes across the window, and so the window's about half size. Also, the existing porch, pretty dramatically changes the massing of the front of the stick style house. So happy to answer any questions. Appreciate consideration.
Yeah, thank you.
I have a question. Looking at, it looks like there are 2 options, correct, in the
Correct.
application? Okay. So one of them, the one that uses more of the colonial style, the Greek columns and things, was your intention with that one to use some of the existing materials from your current porch and just basically revise the shape, the massing of it, so it's not a wraparound, it's more just in line with what we think may have been there?
My intent would be to preserve as much of the original elements as possible. The Corinthian tops have deteriorated and failed on all but 1 or 2 of the columns. There's one column that's of a different size than the others, and so I would do my best to rebuild. There was a tree that fell into one of the columns several years ago, and several others have deteriorated due to water damage, but would attempt to maintain as much of that character as possible.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I also have a turn column, which was probably original to the original porch. It had been moved to another part of the house, and so I would use that in the stick style rendering.
One more question.
Yes, please.
Your option 1, the rendering of more of the stick style porch, it looks like that one is a much smaller footprint. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Option 1 would be a stick style, smaller footprint. Second option would be the larger porch in the colonial Greek column style.
Correct.
Yes, okay. So
There-
those are the 2, not like larger stick style. Okay.
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah, original or
Got it.
current
Thank
basic
you.
massing modified to address some of the structural issues and to uncover that window.
I remember when this came before us a month or 2 ago, and it was a tough nut to crack because the fact that the porch had been there since 1900 gives it its own, historic legacy, even though it is not, original to the house. And I'm still struggling with that now, to be honest. because there is such interesting architectural elements to it, like, curves are always harder to do than straight lines. And I was curious, did you talk with contractors or anything about restoration possibilities of the existing porch?
No, my intent would be to do the work. I've done all the work on the house so far. I would be the person doing the building. Certainly the recreation of the curves would be part of the option 2. Again, my concerns are the flat roofs and the recurrent leaks that have occurred because of the sort of disproportion of the existing colonial porch. That's my main rationale, is preservation of the core structure in a way that was consistent with its original layout.
Would your design option number 2 appease your desire to uncover the window that's covered? It would? Okay.
It would.
I
It
know.
would just not wrap all the way around. I would leave essentially an 8-foot space, so it would wrap just to the edge of the main front door area.
I think this one is still tough, like Dan said. I mean, it's a real conundrum. But I appreciate so much that you brought 2 very different, very valid solutions. I think in this second, I'm liking the idea of kind of rebuilding option number 2, more utilizing the elements that the community has, grown to know and recognize as historic, even though it seems kind of wrong for the house, I know. But I think that keeps the familiarity and still tells the story, rather than totally changing the style and the mass of the porch. I guess that's where I'm currently sitting for a conversation.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate the desire to protect the inside of the home, which it sounds like is your main motivation for for option 1. Is that right?
Yeah, return of the light to that stairwell is a big motivator, and then also the current sort of mass of the porch is challenging there's been current water into the front entry because of the flat roof there.
And I think a big part of our hold up here is just trying to interpret the standards that we have. And so Luis, I have a question about one of the notes in your agenda report, because it seems like, if I'm reading what you wrote correctly, that the style that is currently on there is significant because it represents the time period in which it was built. Is that essentially what that means?
According to NPS guidance, the existing porch is important because it was written into the National Register nomination as being aligning with the Queen Anne / stick or colonial revival property. I do want to be clear that it's my professional opinion that I'm not sure more than 10% of the materials would be able to be salvaged from this porch. The deterioration is extreme. The pictures, and I know we don't have people coming onto your property, but standing on the porch looking up, you can see the buckle. Those are mostly, from what I can tell, stave columns, and some of them are literally bursting at the seams and popping out from each other and buckling. There's another picture that shows the roof line. When it was constructed, came into the stools or the outer sill of the window and actually covers those up. All of these things together then, to me, I'm sure that, Aaron knows this as well, we've elevated past now repair. And if we're looking at number 6, we are going to start to get into, we're going to have to look at replacement. Then we're going to have to start looking at 2, and I'm not sure if I quoted 5 as well, no, just 2, to say, well, okay, then we need to start looking at the character defining features and evaluating those as well. But we have gone past the repair phase with this porch because of the extent of damage on that roof, mainly, and the amount of pressure that it's starting to put on those columns has taken us, again, just in my professional opinion, out of the realm of the repair scenario.
Well, that is clarifying. I do appreciate that because, from the pictures and even from the street, it's like, is it repairable? Because if it was, it would be my wish that you would just like repair what you could and bring it back to where it's at. But hearing what Luis is saying, that pushes me to go ahead and support option 2, because I feel like if you take it all the way to option 1, then you're losing what you're saying, the mass of the house changes dramatically, and then so that changes the character, I feel. But if you can save some of the mass by putting the bigger porch back on, I think I'm more comfortable with that. That's just me.
Just to add to that, I agree that the second option preserves what I would consider a character-defining feature of the house, which is a front porch you can sit on. So.
If there are no more questions or comments, would someone do a motion, please?
I guess I'll attempt a motion because we have a choice here. I move to approve a certificate of appropriateness for rebuilding the porch as a colonial revival style, option 2, as proposed, because the proposed work complies with Secretary of Interior Standards 2, 4, 5, and 9.
Would probably add 6 as well.
And 6. Okay.
I'll second.
Casey, could we get a roll call vote on that, please?
Katie?
Yay.
Christy?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Okay, so the second option was approved. Again, we'll be in touch by the end of the week, and we can have a phone call or out. Again, as you move forward with this one, please just make sure that you get all necessary permit for this one. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you for coming back with 2 new drawings after the August meeting. So that is very much appreciated.
You're welcome. We appreciate the deliberation. Have a good night.
You too, thank you.
All right, moving on to 419 South Westnich.
Hello, I'm Steve Palmer. I am the property manager for Hunter's Ridge Apartments and Level Square Apartments, which also includes houses on either side of the Level Square Apartments there. I'm in my 5th month here and was delegated to come to this, so hopefully I'll have enough information for you that supports what's in front of you. But we are hoping to replace a window in 419 in one of the apartments that is clearly rotted out, and then some, if you look at the pictures, but we're hoping to do it with a fiberglass version from the inside while still having wood on the outside to preserve that. It is a bathroom window, so it is more susceptible to deterioration, and it clearly has happened. So in looking at the fiberglass version, where we can preserve the look and character of that, we're going to be using Marvin. I don't know if any of you are familiar with that. So that is our hope. Ideally, we'll increase ventilation in that room as well. And you can tell by the picture, it needs a lot more help than just a window. But that's not what I'm here for. So that's the generic version of what was put in front of me. So hopefully I can answer questions if you have them. But this is not my bailiwick, I will admit.
Well, thank you for that. Commissioners, any questions? I guess my only question is, what was the material of the window again?
I'm sorry?
What was the material of the window that you're proposing?
Fiberglass.
Fiberglass?
Yes.
Okay, great. If there are no questions, does someone want to make a motion to approve?
You all are going to make this way easy on me.
I'll move to approve a certificate of appropriateness for the work as described in the application as it complies with Secretary of Interior Standards 2, 6, 9, and 10.
Can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you for that. Could I have a roll call vote, please?
Katie?
Yes.
Christy?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
James?
No.
So the motion did carry. I will send over the paperwork to you by the end of the week, and we can continue to be in touch.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we're moving on to 923 West Vine.
It would just a matter of process here. So, especially because we have a new commissioner, generally it's completely the commission's prerogative whether or not they want to proceed with an application. But it is completely within your power to. I mean, you can move this to the end of the agenda to see if the applicant will show up, which formally would be tabling, or you can postpone it until the next meeting. So either is fine.
Could I get a motion to postpone it to the next meeting, please?
I move to postpone consideration of the application for alteration at 923 West Vine to our next meeting as applicant is not here.
Seconded?
All those in favor?
And I just do want to say that if you wanted to move it to the end to allow someone, if they were not here yet, you could table it till the end of the meeting while.
Okay. Do I need a motion to that?
Dana could just alter the motion.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
I move to table the application for the 923 West Vine to the end of the meeting, as the applicant is not yet here.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That's tabled. Moving on to 807 West Vine.
Hi, everyone. My name is Vicarle Castellanos. I'm the owner of 807 West Vine, together with my husband, who's at home with the kids. So we purchased the property in 2022, and we purchased it as a rental property. You probably read from my letter. I actually found the receipt to how much we actually paid for the initial repairs, but it was actually $1,857. For some reason, I had $1,400 in my head. But we knew that there were problems going in. Just the windows were pretty deteriorated. So we have this small business that we utilize, and they came in and they did some fixes, but unfortunately, it didn't last a year. We've been doing some repairs around the property, but it's still, the windows are at a point that there's not really much that we can do to make it more efficient. We even considered with the initial work that the supplier did a couple of years ago, we considered maybe putting storm windows to protect it, but the wood that the windows stand on it wasn't strong enough, so we would need to replace that to cover and protect the windows that were already deteriorating. So again, I think it was going to be around $6,000 to do that. So we thought, again, was putting more gum on top of a problem. So now we're just thinking we just need to replace it. I think the only window right now that I think is standing really well is that window on the south side, which is a fixed window. So there's no draft, and I mean, it's a little bit, the wood is a bit deteriorated, but I think it could stand another good 5 to 6 years with maybe putting storm windows on the outside. But that is the request, to hopefully replace the windows.
Do you have an example of the window that you're looking to, the brand or what it's made of?
So the small business that we utilize, they said that they can do whatever. If there's guidance around it, they can utilize whichever suppliers you recommend. But they're pretty flexible, and he says that he can do any color. I was telling him maybe we can do wood, which would have been the original windows at some point, or wood appearing vinyl, I should say. And then in terms of, I saw your note, Luis, around I forget what they're called, but those nice little panels that we have in the front, I think we could try to replicate that through some sort of supplier, at least those specific windows to kind of keep that integrity, or that appearance, I should say.
I have a question. When you're talking about the damage to the windows, is it damage to the windows or damage to the sill and the frame?
It's damage to everything. It's like every window has a deterioration, I guess I would say, because we have another property it's 836 West Lowell Street, and they put in place those storm windows, and they never painted them. So they've been protected, even though they're wood. You can kind of feel them, as if it's summer or winter, you can kind of feel how they change. But with these, they're just, some areas you can touch them and they crumble. Mm-hmm. And we put the last tenants that we had, well, you can see how they were just painted over where the rope used to be, and the weight just completely undermined any of that, so they were just painted over. But anyhow, last year when we had tenants, they had put the plastic to stop the drafting, but obviously that doesn't stop the cold from getting in. So you would really have to walk around the house to really see how they're like 1 to 3 being 1, the worst condition that they could be in, and 3, it varies from window to window. But I can tell you that it's very hard to open them, and when you open them, you got to be careful, because some of the things that our vendor or person who helped us fix them a couple of years ago put in place, they're not even holding up, because again, the windows are not stable enough to really hold the window up, and sometimes they just kind of fall down too. So they haven't been in the best, they're not in the best condition, unfortunately.
I have a clarifying question. Are you seeking vinyl windows? That seems to be what your application states.
Yes.
Because our historic guidelines typically ask that if things are to be replaced, that we use the same materials. So I guess I have a very real concern about replacing everything with vinyl. And I also am hesitant to approve anything without seeing a detailed drawing of like what the new windows with new mutton sash patterns and things like that would look like. I'm not comfortable giving the trust to just, we'll make it look good, I guess.
No, we would definitely, if you want to see pictures of what they look like, we can do that. Obviously, these houses, we couldn't replace wood, right? We can't, even when we get insurance with some of these homes, you can't insure them for the replacement value because they're irreplaceable. They don't make things like that anymore. But even to consider replacing them with wood windows, it would cost at least $30,000 in today's, which is like 50% of what the house is probably worth. So it's not economically feasible to do that. But yeah, I understand. I think the biggest concern sometimes is just how can we keep these properties up, and so that they don't crumble. And I think that's something that we need to consider when we get to the point of it's pretty deteriorated. How do we maintain it?
I hear you. I just don't know that vinyl is going to be the solution to lasting longevity and adding value. Mm-hmm. And I think it kind of cheapens the whole property, in my perspective.
Do you have a suggestion of maybe other? Oh, okay.
So
yeah,
I have a question.
We have tons. I mean, we do lots of window applications, and commonly what the replacement is aluminum clad wood windows.
Aluminum. Okay.
So they're basically the frame's aluminum, but they're clad in wood. So. But it is, like looking at this house, I mean, it looks like it's traveled through time. A lot of its historic features have been stripped away, and what has got left are those, it's almost like reminiscent of stained glass window panels. I do think that's going to be hard to replicate in a new window, for obvious reasons. And so there are also many very talented window restoration people in town. And maybe it sounds like the guy that you hired before was not that. So they could come in and maybe you could, have a piecemeal solution where the more distinctive historical, windows are actually restored, and then you replace the other ones with aluminum wood-clad windows. So you retain that character, but then you solve a lot of your problems. And because she is correct, like if you go and replace your windows with vinyl windows, you are hurting the long-term value of your house because the value of the historic buildings with these features is much higher. So, and for your neighbors too, like their home values stay higher if everyone's held to the same standard. So that's where I'm at.
I think I'm okay if that is the requirement, aluminum windows, and if that's the way that we need to go. I mentioned the wood windows because I remember we did just because we were curious. When we first purchased the house, we did a quote. They came in and they mentioned that, but we just wanted to know how much it would cost at some point, but to kind of do the like for like. Yeah, it was pretty surprising. So that's why we kind of went with like, hey, let's fix them. And these guys they've been around for a while. Like they've been doing, they're called, oh my gosh.
And I just want to make a couple clarifying remarks, maybe while you look for it, Carly. But, generally, I think that when we're looking at these windows, they're actually aluminum clad wood. So it's the opposite way. So they have like the wood on the inside and then they get wrapped in aluminum, right? I think that what both Dan and Christy were also speaking to when they're talking about the retention of value is also looking at the retention of the integrity and the significance of the property, and the windows are very significant in imparting character to the property. We talk about things that have been stripped away from the property. When I first met Vicarly, I sent you, I think, over the article about the roof over the door that got knocked down.
You share that.
Because it was a frat and they were on top of it and it crashed down. But I think that when I was looking at this application, when I see some of the pictures that you were sharing, I do think that windows can be very intimidating, right? And I think especially as we move forward with the technology that we're getting. One of the pictures that you had, though, had what we call the parting bead was broken, so it's a piece that goes in between, and I'll have Casey pull it up. So it's this picture here. And I only say this because I never want people to get the impression that we're looking to try to hike up prices either, but this one is a very easy fix to get this new piece of wood to put in there. You just literally take that old one out and then hit the new one in with a hammer. It's supposed to fit so tight that it'll stay in, and it stops the windows from having in and out movement. It's literally what holds the top and the bottom sash apart. And not being in the house, I think it would be great if you would, if we could look at a time for me to walk through it with you, to look at all of the windows. We could go through it, and generally I'd bring like a in-awl or a pocket knife to be able to probe the wood to understand which windows are to the point of severe deterioration where we are starting to look at replacement, and then what parts might have fixes that might not have come into mind of your maintenance men, right? I think once we can get that picture more comprehensively put together, then we, as the commission then, and I don't mean to say we, I just always do, but the commission then would be able to determine, okay, maybe there are some windows that have gotten to the point where we cannot fix them. The wholesale window replacement, when we see this generally on the commission, I think that people are generally thinking, okay, are all of them to the point of this severe deterioration, or can we just pinpoint a couple of the windows and say, oh, these ones really do need to be addressed in a manner such as replacement, but the other ones could be kind of just zhuzhed up and fixed. So just again, I think that would be a very enlightening experience for me to be able to come through, look at it. We could fully document everything. Is just a thought that I'm having.
We also have the option of postponing request to what Christie was saying before, if we could see some drawings for what possible replacements could look like. I think, well, at least speaking for myself, I would feel a lot more comfortable with that as well.
I agree.
I think, so I went out to the property and I took some of the pictures that are in the application. I do a lot of my work from my desk, and getting out always takes a little bit longer than I think. But I went out there and I noticed that I could not see the sides of the property from Google Maps. And when I looked at the sides of the property, most of the windows on the sides of the property are single pane over single pane. You get the divided light patterns generally in the front of the property on the main facade. You also have one that's on that eastern facade on the other side, but a majority of the windows are not those fancy ones. And I think that when we're looking at the materiality of the windows, obviously the wood is something that is imparting character into the property. The next step up is the divided lights. When you start to look at those divided lights, the thinness that you can get from the wood is not easily replicated often with other materials. So I think, if we were to do a walkthrough, that's where I would probably go first, is to say, can these ones be salvaged? These are what's imparting the most character to this property.
I think that would be really great if you can go see and evaluate which one could stay and which ones need to go.
Luis, am I correct? And we have a list, or Vine Neighborhood has a list of contractors. We don't recommend as a commission someone to you, but I think it's Vine that has a full list of people who have done these type of renovations with windows and so forth.
I think that they do. The reason I'm hesitant to even get to that point right now is because there have been times when I've visited folks' houses, and I'm not trying to challenge the validity of your statements at all, but there have been times when I've seen folks who did not have specialized window contractors come out and look at stuff. They didn't realize that they were minor repairs, and then sometimes it's like, it can kind of send you into a spiral, right, of like, oh, I'm going to have to spend a lot of money. When I saw the broken parting bead, like I said, that's a really simple fix, and if we can find a longer list of those, I think that we'll be able to better align with the Secretary of the Interior standards and then find a more cost-efficient matter to move forward. But I do think that Vine does have a list that's put together. I'm not sure how contemporary that list is and when they put it together, but you could certainly go to the Vine Neighborhood Association on Southwest Ninja. They have a lot of addresses, so I can't remember which one they formally use, but you could go down there, ring the doorbell, and I'm sure that they'd be able to share something with you as well.
Okay.
Okay.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. Do we need to make a motion to postpone it then?
The commission's prerogative, but if that is, someone wanted to make a motion to that
I think that'd be great.
I'll move to postpone until our meeting on the 19th of November and direct the applicant to provide the materials, more drawings of what possible replacements could be after consulting with Luis.
Just for the sake of the motion, I would also ask that there probably is some further documentation of the condition of the windows.
And further documentation of the condition of each window. And have that to the Historic Preservation Coordinator, Luis, by noon on November 12th, 2024.
I'll second that motion.
Could I get a roll call vote, please?
Katie?
Yes.
Christie?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
So it's just been postponed, so we will set something up. If you want to, I would say that I would, but I don't want to forget. If you want to shoot me an email tomorrow or something and we can look at times. I don't know if there's tenants in the building right now or not.
There's no one.
Okay, so we can schedule a very thorough walkthrough to go look at everything. I can take pictures along with you and we can further assess the condition of those windows and like I said, try to find a path forward that's going to align with the Secretary of the Interior standards, but also is something that's going to work and be practical too. So,
Right. Thank you so much.
Yep, of course. Thank you for coming in.
Thanks so much. 826 Vine Place. Did I miss?
Nope. Your guys' decision completely. I would still look at 826 Vine Place if I was you all. You guys can choose to postpone if you would like, but I think that it is something that deserves discussion.
Okay. Do you have any professional opinion on the salvaging of that house?
So is obviously a fire property. They submitted some pictures that got photocopied, and I think that the quality of the pictures is lost a little bit here. Casey, if you can go down a little bit more. I don't mean this to be me presenting on anyone's behalf. This is just what I see. I went down to this property after the fire happened. There's not really a roof on this property anymore. The property spread to the next door neighbors as well and hit their house a little bit too. It's really just four walls at this point on this house that has been open for a while now.
When was the fire?
In August, along with the spat of the other fires that we had, unrelated to that one and the cause of the fire. I don't really think, not saying that you brought it up, but I don't think that it has anything to do with our deliberations. But, about a month and a half ago, we'll say, or 2 months, so roughly. Some of the delays also from this can be caused. I had not had to deal with a lot of fires prior to this year, but fire investigation needs to happen as well, and I'm not saying anything pro or con, but I think that the deliberation for them as well on the fire investigation can take time, so I don't want it to be misconstrued that there was any kind of waiting for the sake of waiting.
I see this picture, but I also know the house next to 229 Stewart had a fire, and it basically was less than four walls and no roof. And you should see the property now. It is amazing. And Elm Street that Max Tibbs and Jeff Shuda did, I don't know, it had no roof. I mean, when they have a fire, the roof goes and then everything else is water damaged. So, and that house, if you're ever on Elm Street, it's the bright purple house. I mean, it looks amazing now. So, I mean, I know it looks bad and there may be other reasons to demolish it, but if you'd seen these other properties before and you see what they are now, they're rebuildable.
On that note, though, would you say those properties maybe before the fire were more substantial and a little bit more unique than this one, which is, I guess I'm wondering, there might not be the same motivation to put that kind of energy into this one as it was one of those mansions.
Well, yeah, although the one on Elm is similar in size to this one, but you're right. And the other thing is, it took our neighbor took him years to redo it. So
well, I kind of would echo what I think I kind of agree with Dan is that you've got a house that anything can be saved, but I don't know if you're going to find a person that's as motivated physically or financially if it doesn't have those extra kind of unique features that kind of spark that incentive.
Or a unique history or something that would make it, like someone would be drawn back to it, like, it had a special story.
Just to frame it all back within our notice to proceed qualifications and criteria that we have, A being it's a public safety hazard, and I believe E being it is not in the best interest of the community to save. I think that's what everyone's alluding to there. When we start to talk about salvage, I think that there are considerations to be made as well about the char death that happens on the wood, and I don't know, if it gets to a certain point, you don't get to reuse that wood. I don't want to get into semantics with folks because I'm very familiar with properties. And the property on Academy that got rebuilt, recently as well. I'm not sure the extent. I think they got to keep those walls, but if the char damage gets to a certain point, you are not allowed to keep the wood any more than either. So you would be saving it in essence, but you'd be probably needing to do some rebuilding as well, right? I don't know if people went down and looked at this property or if they know where Vine Place is. It's like 10 feet wide. It's a very small street. And again, I'm just giving all the information that might not have been conveyed through the application as well for this.
I was seeing in the application that they want to essentially just fill it with sand and, have it be. I was struggling, though, to understand, are they intending to leave it vacant and just have like more parking space back there? Or would they be trying to build another house? And I guess more comment just for the commission, I guess the nice thing about demolishing it is it's hidden from the street. You really have to go back there to see it. It's barely visible just driving by.
Obviously, use does not come into our consideration. That's something that you were...
Sure.
As you continued with your comment, those questions would truly be for zoning to understand lot size minimums and requirements for moving forward. Again, I think that these are the questions, too, that we would like to ask the applicants. Just as I've continued to as we had the Spada fires that happened, as we had some houses that were just immediately demolished by the fire marshal, as we had some that were not immediately demolished by the fire marshal, and as I had, I guess, conversations with my predecessor, too, about how she was handling these things as they came up, I did just want it to I guess, be discussed a little bit. I think that the porch, when I go by, looks like it might have more of a slope than when it first happened as well. So those are just kind of the things that jumped to my mind.
So logistically, if we issue a certificate of appropriateness, so now that says, from the historic perspective, yes, you can demolish this building. We have a lot of buildings, though, that need to be demolished, and people complain a lot about that, and the city's response is, we don't have money to demolish these. So are we holding up the demolition of this?
Right now, yes.
Okay, so there is money to do it, to demolish it.
I don't want to speak to it because I don't know all the finances on it, but we would issue a notice to proceed for the demolition because obviously it doesn't align with the standards in any capacity.
Okay, let me be a little more specific. So if I were to say, as the property stands now, it's so damaged that it presents a danger to the public and the property's occupants. Okay, so for that reason, I would vote to do this. And 18 months from now, that building is still standing. It is still a danger to the public and occupants, not occupants, but neighbors. So what have we gained?
No, and I hear that sentiment completely. First, I just want to address that and I know that there are other properties that people might view as blighted structures, correct? Mm-hmm. I think that fires, to me, become a different animal quite quickly because of some of the hurdles that we have then to overcome to get them I don't want to muddy the waters at all because I only know enough to be dangerous process and about what would happen next for the funding source. Things can move slowly sometimes, and I know that that's also extremely frustrating, right, to see, and maybe more than frustrating, right? It can elevate then to the danger that you alluded to, and that's the first criteria for the notice to proceed. This one was just wanted to discuss it a little bit, I guess, because of the severity of the damage on the property.
I have a couple of other questions, kind of along those veins, but curiosity, would there ever be an instance, it's a process question, would there ever be an instance of a fire so bad in the historic district that the fire marshal could deem it needs to be knocked down immediately? Does that happen? Okay, so that's not this case, apparently.
I can't speak to that either.
It's still standing, so
I don't want to in any capacity, step on the fire marshal's toes or try to
For sure.
assume what.
And then my next process question is just, let's say the Historic Commission voted to save this structure. We do not want to demolish. What even then does the process look like going forward as far as like timeline or, I mean, like Dana's saying, even if we vote to demolish it, it could still be standing for who knows how long. But what happens then?
However, if we don't vote to demolish it, it won't get demolished because we are a key step in that. So
Yeah.
if it is to be demolished, we have to do our part and, approve
sure.
that in the
For sure.
process.
I was just curious, so like if we did vote to save the structure, like it can't be torn down, like what happens then? Does it just get tarped and sit there and the owners are stuck with it? Like what happens next?
I mean, I frankly, I think you've outlined what would happen. This is a massive undertaking that would result in my opinion, the removal of the entire second story and the rebuilding of it. We cannot compel someone generally to timelines. There are some violations that could be imposed, right? There would be other violations that would get imposed, I think, from other departments of the city. Considering, I think, the notice to proceed criteria, and that it is still here right now, that was just my professional opinion from what was in my report for the steps forward for this project.
I wish the owners of the property were here so we could ask these questions
Correct.
of them, obviously, and it would even help me to be able to speak to neighbors, because I'm imagining if I lived in the house that's in front of that faces, is it Davis Street?
Village.
Which one?
Village, yep.
I wouldn't want this vacant, burned down structure in my backyard either.
Well, and something just strikes me here too. If they were here, we could maybe inquire like if there was insurance, which would mean that, there would be more of a muscle to be able to tackle a project like this if it was,
And I don't think that really would come into our considerations. Fires are interesting beasts, obviously, right? And we had a lot of them in the historic districts, and they ranged in severity from losing 3 houses on Allen Boulevard, where I think that the blaze was so severe that it had to be, 3 houses had to be demolished when the house started in 1, to property on Walnut that had a fire that was contained extremely quickly. This property, you can, and I know that the pictures they speak 1,000 words, but I think that I would never advise anyone to go into this property, but standing outside of it and looking to be able to see through the windows into the sky says a lot.
Okay. Does anyone have further comments, or would they like to make a motion to proceed?
I'll make a motion. And this is a motion to issue a notice to proceed. Is that, so I make a motion to issue a notice to proceed to demolish 923 West Vine. Oh, sorry, 826. That's right, I'm on the wrong one. 826. Sir's right for not showing up. Okay, 826 Vine.
Please.
As it has been severely damaged by fire, and it is in the best interest, presents a public danger, and is in the best interest of the community to have it removed, that danger removed.
I'll second the motion.
And I just want to clarify for the record that it is 826 Vine.
Casey, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Katie?
Yes.
Christy?
With a heavy heart, yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
Okay.
Applicant is watching in TV land. They can know that I'll get in touch with them soon. Otherwise, I'll be sending out an email in the next couple of days to communicate with them that the Historic District Commission has approved the notice to proceed to demolish the property at 826 Vine Place. So,
Okay. Circling back to 923 West Vine.
I'm going to make a motion to postpone consideration of the application regarding 923 West Vine as the applicant has not appeared.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. Luis, would you mind reading your coordinator's report?
yeah, and just a couple things to, we're going to try to set up we're going to set up a retreat training with the HPC. I think it would probably be the easiest. Again, just being candid, if you guys just also shared your availability with me and we could just have a joint one where both commissions come together, we're going to go over a lot of the same stuff that we'd go over in here, and I think that we could have some overlap. We think that it would be the easiest with them. We have like, I think 3 new commissioners, so we need to have a training. Not saying that just one does not facilitate one, but it's gotten to the point where almost a majority of the commission is brand new. So we're looking at probably a weekend on, a couple hours on a weekend, probably on a Saturday. Not everyone needs to attend, but as I get the date set up, I will let you all know and we'll find something. Probably next month too, we need to have elections in this commission as well, just so we can, we're coming into the new year, right? So those are just things to consider. As we look at the numbers in the coordinator's report, I think the ones that are going to jump out, obviously I wasn't here last month, so we have quite a few. I was gone for about 10 or 14 days last month, so there's quite a few applications that came through. The ones that might jump out with folks or at folks are 824 West Vine was another fire. The folks there, my policy has always been if you have a fire and you can get wood windows to fit into the existing openings, I will get that done administratively because I want to get the holes closed on the building. So they were able to do that at 824 West Vine. That might be actually Vine Place. And I think I labeled that wrong. That was next to 826 Vine Place. So that was the property directly adjacent. So sorry about that mislabeling there, but that's the first one. 810 Grant is a property that had another fire that was across the street from the Davis Street Skate Park. And they were also able to find wood windows that were going to fit the existing openings, so they're just going to plug them into the openings. The human side of it is that I have concerns about people being displaced from the homes, and if they're going to put things in when there's a fire, which is truly out of their control or an act of God, as far as I'm looking at it, then I'm going to try to find a way to work with them to get that closed up. So other than that, we have a lot of roofs, certificate of appropriateness extension, some porch repairs. The replacement basement window was a wood basement window that they were going to have someone rebuild. So again, that did not necessarily seem like it needed to come here. There are quite a few folks that I had talked to over the past few months that I had not gotten applications from, so I'm sure that we might have kind of a stacked November as well. We'll kind of see what that looks like. I know that we're going to have some postponements that are going to come up as well. And I'm sure that we're going to see some more of these properties that have had fires come before us in the near future as well. So as I get closer to scheduling up that training, I will let you all know and I'll keep you all in the loop. Thank you all for your time this evening.
I had one question for you, Luis, and I held it back when this guy was talking about the flat roof, because we do have some say in materials for roofing, but in a flat roof specific, do we allow things like EPDM or like a rubber roof or vinyl roofs, I guess, without, because that's the only way to responsibly do a flat roof, if you've got to do a flat roof architecturally.
Yeah, so, appreciate the question. Just to be clear, we're not in any way relitigating the discussion from 9/11.
No, that's why I held it to the end.
So, when I went out there and looked at it, I don't think that there was a true flat roof on the property per se, but there were certainly sections that were flat. on that, and they were built, like I said, right up to the stool of the window. In those pictures, you could see that the bottom sash was, in one case, almost underneath where the
I
roof
have the
line.
same issue on my own house with the side porches that were added, and it's like, what do you do with it?
I've had people that have redone their roofs. Every time I have a roof, I just do it administratively, and if they bring me TPO or EPMD that, or, any kind of vinyl, I will let them
Okay.
use that, because I think, I agree, it is the only responsible way. I also don't think that we had a lot of flat roofs on properties.
Yeah, some
that
of the
far ago.
Italianate, that sort of structurally, that's
Yes.
sort of the design that looked authentic.
Yep.
But like, how do you say to one person, well, you can't put that type of roof on, but yet you can do this other?
I'm just protecting the longevity of the structure.
Okay,
This
that's
is a
what it falls
case-by-case structure, case-by-case deal as well, and I don't want to say that that's just as an absolute, but generally when I see those, they're replacing flat roofs that already existed and they were tar before, or they were some kind of roll.
Yeah, I'd be all for that.
Yep. Thank you.
With that, it's 6:13. We're gonna, could I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.